Welcome back to the next session of the Centre Court Specialised Masters Festival, where with my co-host John Byrne, we're spending the day with senior leaders from both admissions and careers of the leading business schools from across the United States to go beyond the MBA that they already do so well and find out about the portfolio of great early career master's programs that can help you take that next step in your career. Now, doing research is a big part of the Centre Court experience. And when you are America's first research university, I got that right, Jen. Now, that's the case for Johns Hopkins, of course, an extraordinary institution. And you know that you're going to enjoy academic rigor, world-class teaching with the very latest in business knowledge, from leadership development to AI for management. To find out more about what's being planned at the Carey School, my pleasure to be joined by Liz Matthews. Liz is the Associate Director for Coaching and Career Education, and Jen Huda, the Director of Admissions for the full-time programs, including this new Masters in Management. Perhaps, Jen, we can start with you. It must be so exciting to plan a program, having it on that drawing board, and then bringing it to life.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Matt, for having us today. It has been several years in the making now that we have been conceptualizing the Master's in Management degree, which has gained popularity over the past few years in Europe. And it was something that had been on our radar, definitely looking to bring to Johns Hopkins. I appreciate, Matt, that you've already mentioned that we are America's first research institution. So that is definitely one of our values, this idea of innovating and discovery, inquiry, encouraging our students to explore new ideas. And with that, the Master's in Management is really an opportunity for us to allow early career candidates to get a taste of that business world. You mentioned, we had our session with Center Court a couple of weeks ago for the MBA. And we are very proud of all that we offer with our MBA. But as we were starting to also expand that portfolio of different MBA formats, going beyond just our full-time and our part-time online program, we started building out an executive for the students who might be further along in their career. And we wanted to make sure that we had something for those early career candidates that were just starting out, maybe directly from their undergrad, or with 1 or 2 years of work experience. But we wanted to give them an option. And that's really where the Master's in Management comes in nicely, because it allows students who have not necessarily pursued a business background to get some of that business acumen in a nice 1-year format. And really that's going to allow them to, exponentially increase their opportunities after that program.
Right, because in terms of undergrad, whether it was social sciences or life sciences, no prerequisite, but now being able to build a business mindset, Jen, I guess, and to the next steps. So this is a program that really applies to anybody in both a college senior, but in what, the first year or two, the early stages of their career?
Sure. So it can be anyone from, directly out of undergrad, 1, 2, 3 years. There's no set number of years, but if you are a little bit earlier in your career and particularly have the business foundation, so you haven't graduated with a business major, you haven't been actively working in an industry that's business related, this is really an opportunity for you to kind of step back, do some of the fundamentals, and that, like I said, is really going to expand what you're able to do next. It's going to give you that competitive advantage in the job market.
Right. As you say, having a program for different career stages, already the MBA very well established, launching an executive MBA, lots of great choices out there. As you meet candidates thinking about the right next step and the right timing for them, how do you like to describe the Masters in Management at Johns Hopkins, that might then align with their own passions, interests, and future career goals?
Sure. So much of our job is about mentoring students and trying to find that right fit.
Mm.
A lot of introspection involved. We ask our students to, think about what they're passionate about, what specific areas of business excite them. And we know that you know, trying to go back in my memory to when I was going back into undergrad many moons ago. Not everyone goes to undergrad knowing exactly what they want to do. And even after 4 years, they might have a certain amount of, you know, direction, but there's still a little bit of unknown in terms of what comes next. And so the master's in management can really help fill that. Because no matter what you're interested in, whether you were a liberal arts major, whether you were in a science field, the business is going to come and play an important role wherever that is. So thinking about how you can use business to help you take those next steps. And that's what makes it different than our other specialized master's programs. So we offer 7 specialized masters total, the MIM being our most recent. And all of the other ones are very, very focused on particular areas. Our, masters in finance or marketing are going to be very, very specialized, whereas the master's in management gives you a lot more freedom. It really is going to give you that flexibility. It's applicable to any sector. You can go into consulting, tech, healthcare, finance, nonprofits, any of those. It's shorter than an MBA, which is nice. It's less expensive than an MBA, which is even greater. And there's a lot of emphasis really on just some of those other skills that you might not have gotten in your undergrad, the leadership, the soft skills development. So focusing on communication, teamwork, cultural awareness, ethical decision making. That's really all going to be fundamental in the master's in management.
Right. Well, we'll be talking about just how much you pack in, both in the classroom and then beyond in a wider experience as part of Johns Hopkins. But Liz, compared perhaps to a more specialized master's in finance or in other specific areas, when it's the more general management and that opportunity to explore, how do you then like to work with students to get them to think about the broad number of opportunities that they will be able to pursue coming out of the MIM?
Sure. So thank you as well, Matt, for having us. And one thing that we really like to say at Hopkins to our students is get curious, talk to people, and try things. And I think that just sets it up so nicely to really lead with your curiosity. What are you interested in? What gets you going, right? And so if they can talk to alumni who have titles that they think sound interesting, work for companies that they think have a great product or service, then they can see if what they say aligns with their vision of what that role and what that industry is. But it is, as you all have said, it's so important to take a step back and really do that introspection work, right? So that you have you take your time to really understand what's out there. You may think you want to be in a certain industry, and then when you talk to people, you realize, wait a second, that's not at all what I thought it was, right? And so you fine tune what it is where you might want to go post-graduation through these exploratory conversations.
That we'll be talking later about having over 250,000 alum in the wider Johns Hopkins community, over 30,000 with the business school. So, big networks for them to be able to tap into. But if one of the candidates was saying, "Oh, Liz, I want to be a VP in a healthcare program or very specific job title in a particular industry," great. There's real determination and motivation there. But to tap back into that curiosity, how are you then working with them through the program to be able to then enable them to look at so many different industries, roles, functions that they could ultimately pursue?
Sure. So we touched on a little bit earlier that through this program, they really get that business acumen, right? So that they're able then to take that no matter what discipline they decide to go in after graduation. So we have that opportunity there, and we also have not just the LinkedIn to access all of those many alums that you mentioned, but Hopkins actually has something called One Hop, where it's like our little mini LinkedIn universe. And there's the healthcare leaders in there if they want to talk to them. These are folks that have opted in and said, I know how challenging it is as a student to figure out what I do want to do with my degree. and can help be there and help guide these students in these exploratory conversations.
Right. If Jen, a candidate, is looking at that portfolio, the marketing, that's something I'm really interested in, but then the MIM, placing that already within Johns Hopkins, in terms of the institution, its global reputation, there are options. There are European business schools, others. You must have been thinking about, okay, how do we make this really special? We talked about, of course, the leadership development. You've got this AI for management module that's part of the program. So in thinking about the program, what to you makes it such a distinct master's in management?
It's a great question, and it's such a unique program because while it's called a specialized master's and falls under, all of our master's programs, it's in so many ways more closely aligned with our MBA and our MBA portfolio. Just in the sense that it really is going to give you a much broader overview of the various topics in business. And so I think for our students, having that vision of what's next, are you looking for something very, tailored and focused, or are you looking for something that is going to be much more broad and give you that flexibility? So within the Master's in Management, how we set it up to give you the best of both worlds, if you will. Our curriculum, you have your business foundations, which is really going to take you through most of your time here. So that's 22 credits of a 30 credit program. And that's going to give you an introduction into business analytics, business communications, marketing management, statistic analysis, corporate finance, leadership and organizational behavior. So all of those very closely aligned. I would say a lot of those classes are very similar to the MBA coursework. And then our electives, this is where we tried to kind of go back to giving that specialized master's approach. So you have 4 different elective tracks that you can choose from. So you have 8 credits that are within your electives, and you can choose from AI for management, analytics for management, leadership, or entrepreneurship. So we've bucketed the electives into those different tracks that you can choose. We don't force you into any one of those. If you don't want to select a track, that is an option as well. You would just pick your electives from the general pool. But this is really a way that we can get students to start moving in that direction. So they would be getting into those electives generally in the spring of their year with us. So our classes are done in 8-week terms. So you would have 2 fall terms, 2 spring terms. So this would really be later in spring 1 or spring 2, which would have given you time to think about those introductory courses that you've done, get in a sense for, the different industries. And then you can really start to kind of fine tune. And the nice thing is with the Master's in Management is that it can be a launching board for the MBA in a few years. It also can be a launching board for one of our specialized master's programs. So a lot of opportunities there. And the other thing about the program is we really wanted to make sure that we had opportunities that were experiential in nature. So much of Johns Hopkins is based around experiential learning. So in the springtime, there is going to be a course. It's going to be the signature experiential learning course. So students are going to travel to Paris for a week in the spring. And they are going to do a course that's focused around strategic brand management. So while they will be taking in the sights and the sounds and all that Paris has to offer, they're really going to be getting a global perspective of business, getting skills in building and managing brands, strategy formation, implementation. And so just a culmination of everything that they've learned. You get the history, the culture, but then you also have the brands, the products, looking at things like how the EU structures its market. So taking that and looking at it from a global approach. So that's really exciting that's kind of where the course will end in the spring of the year.
Well, as the song tells us, we all love Paris in the springtime, and it'll no longer just be Emily. There'll be Michael and Francesca and Deepak and all of the other classmates in the MSN.
Yes.
It's a wonderful capstone to conclude the program. I'm imagining, Liz, both with Carey and the wider university, you have such strong corporate and recruiter connections, over years, over decades. And as perhaps the dialogue that you've had with them about the sort of skills that they are really looking for in Carey graduates, what sort of feedback, as we think about the job market of 2027 and beyond, what are the qualities and characteristics? Is it the analytics rigor Jen was describing in some of the electives, with that ability to manage teams and possibly manage robots as well?
Right. So I think what's great about Carey in general, in addition to this program, is that students come out with a great balance of the human skills plus the technical skills, right? So as we know, it's so important to I just can't emphasize enough. I hear over and over again from employers across the US. And in fact, Jen and I were in China last spring, and we heard it from them that there are two things that are the most important qualities in candidates that they're looking for.
Mm.
And it was motivation. How badly do you want to work for our company? And number two, communication. So while they're getting all of the most recent AI and Python and data analytics, all of those core business skills, we also just really emphasize you have to be able to talk about it, right? It's so important to be able to communicate the data that you've been able to put together, and you have to have those human skills to be a really good leader, the listening, the empathy, the role modeling, the decision making, all of that. So it's a complete package, I think, particularly in this program, because as Jen mentioned, the students are earlier on. So if they can get this foundation, if you will, early on in their career, it is going to serve them so well, no matter where they go.
Yeah, that sweet spot perhaps of both the sort of the quant and the analytics side with the communications and leadership skills. As you think about perhaps the graduates that will be coming out of the program in 2027, do you think that will predispose them to both big companies, Fortune 500s, but with the entrepreneurial mindset that could equally be a small startup or venture, right? The really endless opportunities.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes students think they want to work for a brand name or a big company, and we really encourage them to be open, right? And to talk to folks who work for smaller companies, startup companies, mid-sized companies, because you can sometimes get so much more experience in those situations because you're exposed to so many things, just like in this degree, you're exposed to so many different parts of business, as opposed to working for a really large company and you do this one thing specifically all day long, right? I mean, that can be a great experience as well. But I think it really sets them up for whatever, again, going back to their interests, that this can take them to any of those places. And likewise, hopefully their careers are long, right? And so they can start off perhaps in a smaller company and work their way to a bigger, or vice versa.
Right. An obvious question, Jen, before they even show up in Paris, how do you fit everything in? I mean, we said this is a 9-month intensive, so they're working hard, but playing hard, and again, enjoying the city and the East Coast and everything else that Baltimore and the setting of the program has to offer.
It's a lot, I will be honest. That's why we do the 8-week term structure. We found years ago when we were designing the curriculum that most students would get burnt out around, that 10 to 12 week mark. So why not just condense it all into 8 weeks? That way you get a little bit more. So you have 2 courses each semester. But the wealth of opportunities outside of the classroom, within Carey, but within the Johns Hopkins ecosystem as a whole, within the city of Baltimore and Washington, D.C., there's so much to take advantage of. And we really try and work with our students. You have a number of advisors. So you're going to have someone like Liz as your career advisor, but you have someone from student affairs, from academics, from a program lens. Everyone is working with you. And the way we approach, our career advising, we're known as the career and life design team. And that's very intentional. It's, an approach to think about not just what's next for your job, but what are you interested in as a person? What are your, personal interests and goals? And so we really think about that process the entire way through, not just on the outbound end of things. And so we're all working with you from the get-go to make sure you're a good fit. We have the different resources that are going to be effective for you, but we're also going to have lots of different ways for you to be engaged and involved in our community.
You were mentioning that both of you were in China recently, and the Johns Hopkins names that is a global brand. It's recognized all over the world. And I suppose with the international part of the program, building the global mindset of students. Jen, in terms of expectations, great school, how much you're going to learn in 1 year. I imagine that first class will be very diverse, very international as well.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see where we land with things, but we are looking for, a nice split in terms of international and domestic students. I think that provides a really rich classroom environment. So that's something that we look at within the application process. Specialized master's program that we do live interviews for. So very similar to the MBA process. And there are questions within the interview as well about, cultural awareness, global awareness. So we're definitely making sure that the students that we bring into this program are going to be able to contribute to that classroom dynamic, because we want to mirror what we have in the MBA program in terms of that international balance.
Right. And already, of course, for Carey, MBAs, Liz, for some of the recruiters, are they actually excited to have access to this talent at a slightly earlier stage in their career? And as they're thinking about, the sort of the culture of their organization, hiring them at the age of 24 versus 29 to 30, is that something very exciting to them?
I think so, yes. And I think one of the unique things about Carey, because we are a young institution, we're able to pivot, right, a little bit more quickly. We're not 100 years old, we're less than 20 years old. And so when things like AI start to come up, like our faculty saw this need ahead of time, right? So then we were able to really act quickly and incorporate it into our programs. And therefore, when our students graduate, our employer partners understand that when these students have been at Carey, they are learning sort of the latest trends, the latest, whatever is not just trend, right? But what is happening in our global economy and our world. And so I think they particularly enjoy talking to and bringing on our students because of that latest, most greatest information that they've been able to gather during their time here at Carey.
Right. And your conviction in a challenging job market, to be in that market both with the network and the support of the school, but with those latest skills, management and ways of thinking, as you think about teams, some of the qualities that you were describing earlier, you're going to be in much stronger position, than seizing some of those opportunities in the job market with the MIM from Carey, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely. I think that it's going to position them really well. And one of the things that, while we obviously don't have data yet for for this program, the employment data, because it starts next fall in 2026. When we take a look at some of our other specialty masters, like the healthcare management, we've got graduates that are going into such diverse industries like accounting, consulting, healthcare, and then function areas, finance, general management, right on point, business, data analytics, marketing, sales. So I think that all of these are just going to position them so well to really work with our partners that we've been able to create these relationships with, whether they're recruiters or alumni, that we have in the US or at global companies around the world.
I must say, and the Centre Court viewers know this of me, I love that pioneer mindset, thinking of a top European school like INSEAD, the first class that came in. Maybe they got a little extra special TLC as the first student, but also they I think they had this wonderful sense of engagement because together you're then shaping the program too. Now, Jen, when candidates are applying, whether seniors in college or in that very early stage of their career, how much clarity do they need to have in terms of career goals? Because you've been talking about curiosity, opening new doors, exploring all of these different options. So is it more sort of self-awareness that you're looking for in terms of the qualities that they want to shine? What are you looking for in the application?
It's a great question. And I would say that clarity of career goals is something that we pay close attention in any of our applications. It helps us understand not only their readiness for the program, but how well our resources can support them. We want to make sure that we're preparing them for success. But especially with a program like this, we don't expect every applicant to have their entire career mapped out. But we will look for a sense of direction and intentionality. So we want to see that they've taken the time to reflect on why they are pursuing and how it fits into their broader story. And so we're looking for that in your essay. That's why we have the live interview. And how all of that weaves together your past and what you hope to build upon from it. So like I said, we're assessing both the academic and cultural fit. We really pay attention to our values. So Carey is very focused on business with humanity in mind. So we want to make sure that we're bringing in students who share that value. We want students who are excited about the experiential, collaborative nature of our environment. And ultimately, we're looking for people who are going to benefit from and contribute to our community. So yes, the clarity and goals is helpful, but this program, we just want that self-awareness and that intentionality.
And presumably the authenticity, it's not trying to second guess what you and the team want to hear. Here's my story, whether I was an engineer or a liberal arts major, there's a place for everybody because, they don't have to have learned coding or anything to come into the program. So they're just sharing that humanity, that sense of community and contribution. Best way to approach the application, I would imagine.
Yeah, and that's something special about Carey. I think in all of the years that I've been in higher education, one of the most common questions I've is, well, I'm a non-traditional applicant. I didn't study business. And I think for many years that was a great concern with an MBA program. With Carey, I always like to lead the MBA presentations with the fact that most of our class are not coming from business backgrounds. It's much more STEM fields. Healthcare, of course, is a big one. And with the MIM, of course, everyone is coming from something that is, different. I think that's the one thing they have in common is that no one really has done a deep dive into business. Not saying this was a lengthy discussion we had, as an admissions team. If someone does have a business undergrad as their major, can they not do the MIM? And it's like, getting that even, making sure that all of our students are set up for success and having that ability to have a classroom where everyone feels comfortable coming in, knowing that everyone's kind of starting off at the same place is a really nice, comfortable place to be. So that's what makes it special, I think, as well.
Okay. So Liz, if Jen's team are going to be overwhelmed with applications, and then of course that you'll be part of that welcome as they show up for the MIM program next year. In the earliest of interactions with them, with everything that lies ahead, the experiential learning, heading off to Paris and all the electives that they could choose, how do you then like to prepare them both in setting priorities, this network that they're becoming a part of, how they can, connect with employers and alumni. But what's your final piece of advice of how they're really going to be able to get the most out of the program?
Sure. No, I love that. So I just think, as far as I'm concerned, the number one most important thing is figuring out that networking piece, right? It is so critical to not only, like we've talked about, figuring out what it is that you want to do, but then, of course, actually getting a job post-graduation. And so from the very beginning, before they even land on campus, we encourage them to talk to alumni, staff, faculty, employers, community members, and that just continues throughout the year. And one of the highlights for all the specialty master's students is we have an event in the spring. Every spring, it's called MS Alumni Connect. And we bring the MS Specialty Master's students, which of course the MIM would be a part of, together with alumni who've graduated from these various programs. And we're very intentional with the students before they show up to the event. So we give them a booklet that has the headshots, the title of the company, the LinkedIn URL, and we really encourage them to do their research because, as you know, when you walk into a room and you're supposed to be networking, that can be so intimidating. And so while we do have some structured networking, we also just say, if you do your homework ahead of time and you look to see who it is that you really want to speak with because of where they work or what their title is or what have you, then when you get in that room, you can prioritize and be more efficient and more genuine in the questions that you ask, and those interactions can then really spawn more meaningful relationships for their network moving forward. And then I also just want to add on the experiential learning side of it. So the Career and Life Design team has partnered with our Office of Experiential Learning. And I know we're going to do this for the MIM program. A year or so ago, we had students who were in Berlin for a Germany immersion studying finance. And they had been spending the week interacting with other students who were studying there from Italy and companies and so forth. And so a colleague of mine and I zoomed in to a session that they were having before they went into a networking reception with all these people that they have interacted with during the week. And we had a really good conversation and encourage them to think about appreciative inquiry, and going into that session asking questions like, what's the best thing that could happen to you this year? What inspires you about your work? What was the best part of your experience this past week? So really being intentional with the networking, and when you just get so much more out of it. So I just think it's such an exciting opportunity for these students to be able to go to one of the world's most amazing cities and really have this opportunity. And I can't wait to work with them on this.
Yeah, you've very neatly brought us full circle. We talked about recruiters looking for determination and communication in their skill sets, how an event like that in Berlin, Paris, or in Baltimore is really going to set the scene and optimize opportunities like that. So perhaps a final word, Jen. Next steps, our viewers, whether they're with us live or watching this on the YouTube channel, they want to find out more about the program, want to connect with you as a school, as a team. So what would you encourage? Different touch points, the website, and other opportunities to meet with Carey?
Sure. We are super excited about this program, everything that we have to offer. There's a number of ways that you can get in touch with us. I would start with the website, a wealth of opportunities there. You can see our entire admissions team, so you can connect with someone based on if you already know which program you're interested in. You have a particular team member that you'll be working one-on-one with, and they stay with you throughout the process, which is lovely. But if you are just kind of still at that inquiry stage, we are also happy to have those conversations with you. So whether you're having a phone call or a Zoom meeting, or if you're local and you want to come in and visit in DC or Baltimore, we're happy to do that. But we have a number of events. You can always go to our website, both virtual webinars that we're hosting or something like this that we're, participating in with another organization. We have in-person events at campus or all around the globe. We have a global collaborations team. So it's not just our team that's located here in Baltimore and DC, but we have a number of colleagues that are located around the globe to be a little bit more hands-on in areas like India and China. So you can meet directly with a representative there. Our website has a way that you can connect with ambassadors, both current students and our recent alumni. So any way you can, I would encourage you. We are so happy to have these conversations, as are our current students and our alumni. Even if you were just to go to LinkedIn and find someone who has a similar background to you, they're never going to turn down the opportunity to talk about their Carey experience. But if you're looking for the Master's in Management in particular, I can share the contact information for the staff member responsible particularly for that program, and set up a call with us to learn more.
Fantastic. Well, I can only imagine the planning and the thoughtfulness and the enthusiasm that to now reach this point in launching the program. We're delighted to then be able to share that at Centre Court. Very special moment, and I'm sure in the next months you'll be meeting some extraordinary candidates. I love the fact that both of you had talked about some of the support that was both career and life design and how you've brought those two together. It's going to be an incredible accelerator for your careers, but what an amazing life experience too. So Jen, Liz, thank you so much for joining us at the Centre Court Masters Festival. It was great having you with us.